Hola, clase. So I just want to go over what we have for this week. As you know, we're taking our exam for Capítulo Uno in MindTap by today, Thursday at by 4. And then also for Thursday, you're just going to go in and start previewing some of the stuff for Capítulo Dos. You're going to look at the objectives, and then there is a Ready and Learn It activity that we're just looking at the new vocabulary, which is La Familia. So that was what was due by today at 4. And then for Monday, you have a last name discussion board, and we're going to be reviewing a little bit of that today. And also, you're going to be doing Exploraciones Léxicas Uno, which is the first vocabulary section in Capítulo Dos. You're learning about the family and doing some activities in MindTap. And then you're just going to preview the first grammar section for the first Exploraciones Léxicas Uno. So that is what you have. You have your last name discussion board is here. And then you do have a breakdown of the assignments here if you want to take a look at that. I just put a couple different views of it so you could see what you have to do. So the first thing we're going to do is just go through La Familia. We're going to talk about last names in Spanish. So let's just go over a little bit of the basics with last names. So in our culture, typically we take our father's last name, or some people do take their father's and their mother's last name and hyphenate. And I think it's becoming more common to hyphenate. But in general, since medieval Spain, there was the tradition of having a very long name. So you had your nombre de pila, which was your first name. You had your segundo nombre, or your middle name, and then you had your apellido paterno, which comes first in your name, and then your apellido materno. So we can look at some examples of what that looks like. So for example, if we had the name Luis Alfredo, so Luis is going to be his nombre de pila, and then Alfredo is going to be his segundo nombre, or his middle name or second name. And then say that his last name was Gonzalez, and then say that his other last name was Fernandez. So this is the order of the names. So we have Luis, nombre de pila, first name, Alfredo, segundo nombre. Then we have Gonzalez is the nombre paterno, that's his father's last name. And then Fernandez would be his mother's last name. So that's how the order goes in Spanish. So let's look at this name. We have this name Julia Mendez Prado. Julia Mendez Prado. So we want to determine if Julia is the apellido apellido paterno, or the nombre de pila. And in this case, it would be the nombre de pila. That's her first name. And then we have to determine with Mendez, is Mendez her apellido materno, or her apellido paterno, or her nombre de pila. In this case, it would be her apellido paterno. It would be the first name is actually her father's last name, her apellido paterno. And apellido just means last name. And then Prado, what part of her name is Prado? Is it her apellido materno, paterno, or nombre de pila? In this case, it would be her apellido materno, her mother's last name. So let's do a little bit of more practice here. So following traditions. So what's going to happen is when a child adopts her parents' names, she's going to take her father's paternal last name and then her mother's paternal last name. So that's the order. She'll still have her nombre de pila, her segundo nombre, but then she's going to have two last names. So we have these two people. We have Julia Mendez Prado and we have Eduardo Kraus Mercado. They get married. They have a child named Marcos. So his name's going to be Marcos. And then he's going to take his father's paternal last name of Kraus, because that's the one that comes first, as we know. And then he's going to take his mother's paternal last name, Mendez. So he would be Marcos Kraus Mendez. If he grows up and marries a woman named Laura Nunez Garcia, what would the full name of their child be if their nombre de pila is Marta Azucena? So we're looking at these examples over here. Would it be Marta Azucena Kraus Mendez, or Marta Azucena Kraus Nunez, or Marta Azucena Mendez Garcia, or Marta Azucena Nunez Kraus. So in this case, we want to say that she's going to get her father's paternal last name first. So it's going to be Kraus. And then her mother's paternal last name is Nunez. So she's going to be Marta Azucena Kraus Nunez. So let's do a little bit more practice with this. I'm going to give you guys some examples, and I'm just going to ask you to give me the answers to these questions. So here we have some examples. So we have Maria Elena Gutierrez Rodriguez marries Eduardo Rafael Espinoso Perez. They have 2 children. They have Luis Alfonso and Maria Susana. What would the full name of their children be? So for Luis Alfonso, we're still going to have the name Luis Alfonso. What would the last names be? So in this case, it would be Espinosa, because we're going to take the father's paternal last name, which comes first in his last name. And then we're also going to take Gutierrez, because that's the mother's paternal last name. And then essentially Rodriguez and Perez just get lost. The children don't inherit that. And then we also have Maria Susana, and her name would also be Maria Susana Espinoso Gutierrez. So we have another example here. We have a guy named Luis Eduardo Chavez Hernandez. He has 2 last names. This is his nombre de pila. And he marries Teresa Marta Morales de Leon. They have 1 child named Jose Felipe. What would his full name be? So we have Jose Felipe. Father's paternal last name is Chavez. So we'll put that in first. And then we have his mother's paternal last name is Morales. So it's going to be Jose Felipe Chavez Morales. And you're going to be doing this for yourself with your discussion board, where you have to do your own last name. But I just want to do a little bit more notes with this. So as you know, basically in Spanish cultures, people have either 1 name or sometimes 2 names, like Jose Luis or Juan Luis. Typically there are 2 names. And traditionally, we do have 2 surnames or last names. As we know, the paternal comes first and then the maternal. And that just means, so as you might realize, this means that we would call the mother's maiden name is passed down a further generation than we have in our culture. So going back to our friend Jose Luis Rodriguez Zapatero, using the information above, we understand that Rodriguez is his paternal last name, Zapatero is his maternal last name. So in Spanish culture, women do not change their name when they get married. So they're not taking their husband's last name. So generally the mother, the father, and the children in one family will all have generally different last names. For instance, Jose Luis Rodriguez Zapatero is married to Sonsoles Espinosa Diaz. Diaz is her paternal last name, Espinosa is her paternal surname, and Diaz is her maternal. And their children's names are Laura Rodriguez from the dad, Espinosa, and Alba Rodriguez Espinosa. And just a general rule that when you are addressing somebody in Spanish culture, you're not typically using both of their last names. You'll just use their paternal last name. So for Jose Luis Rodriguez Zapatero, you're going to call him Señor Rodriguez and not Señor Rodriguez Zapatero. You're just going to use his paternal last name. So what I'm going to ask you now is just to repeat some of the vocabulary that we have for our familia. We're going into the Exploraciones Léxicas 1, the first vocab section in Capítulo 2. And you have a bunch of vocabulary here, but the main family members we have are here. So I'm just going to say the word and you just repeat. So we have la abuela and el abuelo. That's the grandparents. The grandmother is la abuela. El abuelo is the grandfather. If we wanted to say the grandparents, it would be los abuelos. Then we have la madre and el padre, the mother and the father. La madre because it's female, and el padre because it's male. Then we have el tío, the uncle, and la tía, the aunt. If it were the aunt and uncle together, it would be los tíos. It would be the masculine because it includes a male. And then we have el perro, the dog. Then we have hermano for brother and hermana for sister. If we were talking about siblings, we would say hermanos if it were males and females, or hermanas for just sisters. Then we have el primo and la prima, the cousin who's a male, and la prima, the female cousin. If it were cousins, if there were two girls, it would be las primas and los primos for just boys and girls mixed as cousins. If I say tengo cinco primos, I'm saying I have 5 cousins, mixed gender, or it could be 5 males. And then we have el caballo, the horse. His name is Pinto, apparently, se llama Pinto. And Timoteo is el ratón. And there's a couple more family members down here. You have words like esposo, spouse or husband. Esposa would be the female version. Hermanastro, stepbrother, or hermanastra. El hermanastro, la hermanastra. El hijo, the child, male, or la hija, the daughter. La madrastra. Whenever we had that astro or astra at the end, it's considered to be a step. So padrastro would be the stepfather. Medio hermano is half brother. Nieto or nieta is your grandchildren. So female would be la nieta, el nieto. Pariente is a relative. And then you have sobrino and sobrina. La sobrina, el sobrino for niece and nephew. So these are just some of our words that we have for our vocabulary. So what I want to do is just go over a little bit of practice for the vocabulario. So we have some family members here, and we just want to go over a little bit of this pronunciación to make sure that you are saying the words correctly. So we're not going to say el hijo, we're going to say el hijo. Remember that J is like an H, and the H is that we see written is silent. So el hijo or la hija for the female daughter. Los hijos, the children or daughters and son together. Then el hermano, we're not saying hermano, we're saying hermano, or la hermana, the sister, the brother. Los hermanos, the brothers and sisters together. Then we have el nieto, or la nieta. Remember, a, e, I, o, u. We really want to pronounce that nieto. That would be grandchildren, grandchild or granddaughter. Then el suegro, that's your father-in-law, or la suegra, mother-in-law. La nuera, or el nuero, that's going to be your daughter-in-law, and nuero is your son-in-law. Then we have pájaro. Remember that accent is pájaro. It's really putting that accent on the A. And then el caballo. That double L is a yo. So caballo, like yo me llamo, for example. Just a quick note that when you have padre, mi padre, that's for one male father. But if you put padres, that could be parents together, male and female. Same with tío. That's one uncle. Or tía would be a female aunt. But when you say tíos, you're talking about the aunt and uncle together. And just a quick note that novio or novia could either be mi novio, my boyfriend, or mi novia. But if you put them together, novios would be the people that are dating. Sometimes we also refer to them as the groom or the bride, like if they're getting married, or fiancé. So let's just go through these and just determine what the answer would be. So if I'm talking about la madre de mi padre es mi. So the mother of my father is my what? And in that case, it's going to be mi abuela, because abuela, as we know, is grandmother. So abuela is going to be your answer for that one. Mi abuela. So now I have el esposo, de mi tía es mi. So the spouse of my aunt is my what? In that case, it would be tío. Los hijos de mis tíos son mis. So the children of my uncles and aunts are my. In that case, it would be primos because they're cousins. If this were las hijas, then that would change to primas because it's children that are girls now. Las hijas de mi hermana son mis. And in this case, it's going to be sobrinos, or sobrinas, perdón, because hijas are females, female nieces and nieces in this case. And then yo soy, I am, el nieto or la nieta de mis what? You are the grandchild of your what? De mis abuelos. So if you're a girl, you would be yo soy la nieta. And if you're a boy, you would say yo soy el nieto. So this is just a little introduction to the familia words. I will be talking about these and studying them again on Tuesday. If you have extra time this week because you get your work done, I'm going to ask that you get caught up. If you are missing any work from me, to me, then you should get that in. Check Blackboard, see what you're missing. Make sure that you catch up on whatever you can this week as we're going to be moving forward, and there'll be more work coming up next week. Muchas gracias, estudiantes. Adiós.